and lower cooldown on his axe, from what I remember, which hyperscales with cooldown reduction, and so the lower cooldown actually makes it really good clear time for him. It's one of the fastest clearers in the game actually currently. If you're maxing that axe out, you pick it up and throw it pretty much instantly with a blue buff, so clear out camps super fast. His dueling, if you can keep picking up axes, absolutely insane. Like, he's one of the top duelists in the game. If you can, run into a lane and hit multiple axes in a row, that's absolutely huge. He's really good in that sense. But hard to be able to get in there and land multiple axes at the same time, so bit of a hit or miss there. Late game scaling is really pretty decent. Can run at your 80 carry, and Tristana can't buster shot him away and stuff. He's really tanky, deals a whole lot of true damage, a bunch of CC packed into him. One of the better sort of bruisers in my opinion right now. Riven jungle, surprisingly good. Her dueling mobility is better than those of the rest of the tier 2, more in the mobility department. Clear time early, kind of iffy. Team fighting, a lot of AoE stacked in there, and we all know what Riven does in team fights. Lack of objective control unless you use, if you're wanting to secure an objective efficiently, she doesn't really have that much burst damage to go with it. I mean, you can use your ultimate, but yeah, Riven's in a bit of a funny place, but she's not actually that bad in the jungle with the Spirit of the Elder Lizard on her. Hecarim got slight buffs, and I really like this champ at the moment. Really good scaling into the late game. Goes absolutely ham with just all you need is a Triforce and Spirit of the Elder Lizard combined with full tank. Becomes unkillable with an outstanding amount of damage late game. The only thing is his early game is trash. Like, his clear time, really bad due to the low base damage on his Q. Doesn't have that good a sustain due to his W only healing 60 off monsters in the early game. Really prone to counter jungling, like if a Lee Sin comes in, you can't really do that much against him. Early game ganks are kind of iffy. His level 6 ganks are really decent on bot lane against a sort of more low ability champs, but yeah, really good scaling into the late game, crappy early game. That's Hecarim in a nutshell. Mumu. Alright, so everyone knows Mumu doesn't get blue buff on his first round. He's a little bit shitty. Can counter jungle him at his red, can't do anything. Pre-6, Mumu is like just gets out dueled by pretty much everyone. Scales well into the late game, obviously. His team fighting is really good and all that, but his, as I'm saying, the early pressure and the early jungle pressure that Mumu puts out just isn't enough to make him into a high tier champ right now. A lot of people argue, oh, he is really good and stuff. And that's fine. You can play him in solo queue. I'm saying he is good in solo queue, but if you're up against people that are knowing what they're gonna like, people that know how to play against a Mumu, it's gonna be really hard for you to consistently climb the rank ladder with a Mumu, just in the fact that you will get these players who will counter jungle you. A lot of people say, oh, people don't do it, but you can't, people will start doing it, the higher you climb, the harder it'll get to climb with that champ. The other one, he just doesn't have those rounded strengths. Objective control, I mean, he can burn down objectives with his W reasonably well, but has no sustain, no execute either, so means dragons are slightly risky. Pre-6 ganking relies on a bandage, and then there's not too much follow-up burst from that. 2v2's kind of bad if you get counter-ganked. This level 6 ganks are good, as we all know, but still, that's a moment. Xin Zhao, just late game, really bad champ. Unless you snowball super hard, his late game is absolute trash. it doesn't really fit into team fighting that well unless you know how to use his ultimate correctly. He's an absolute terror in the first couple of levels. His dueling is really, really effective. He can crush most of the junglers, actually. Like Lee Sin, he pretty much outduels Lee Sin in a level 3 battle at the moment, due to the attack speed slow being nerfed off Lee Sin. His ganks are somewhat effective, but yeah, he's in a really funny spot at the moment. Feral Flare nerf kind of hurt him. If you go the Elder Lizard, then your scaling's not that great, but you're sort of, I guess you fall off around levels 7 to 8, whereas the other junglers kind of still peak around there. So, yeah, I don't know, Xin Zhao, low tier 2. Pantheon, hit by big nerfs to his ultimate. That shit takes ages to fall. That's like 3 seconds or something, over 3 seconds now by the sound of it. You know, that hit really, really hard. That was the biggest reason Pantheon was a huge top tier jungler. Like, he was primary tier or tier 1 for like a decent amount of time just due to that. How fast his ultimate fell. That nerf alone, yeah, it's pretty much ruined this champion. His clear time is really, really crap. Like, really crap. His dueling is alright, but once you blow your W, you can't really follow up on like a 1v1 duel with the Lee Sin or whatever, unless he stays around stupidly, but he's okay. Like, his ganking is good, if you can get onto them, but his lack of mobility makes him kind of vulnerable at the same time if you get out of position in the jungle. Yeah, people can walk out of your ultimate post 6, so yeah, don't even worry about this champ in my opinion. He's Snowball's really hard with items, like really hard. Can start one-shotting people. Still wouldn't recommend playing him that much though. Zed's an interesting one. Zed has a really, really quick clear time, can tower dive like pretty well at level 6 due to his ultimate, so you can just port back to it and all that sort of stuff. Sorry, excuse me. Yeah, Zed's an interesting one. He scales well into the late game. The changes to exhaust have kind of brought him up a little bit, in my opinion. And the fact that you can actually deal more damage now. And obviously the buffs to Zed in patch 4.14, where you get placed behind them with your ultimate, and you can phase through people. So Zed's an interesting jungler. I'd give him a go and see if you like it. He's kind of inconsistent though, due to the fact his early dueling's pretty iffy. He has no CC, so his ganks are really poor until level 6 when you just burst people. So yeah, Zed's an interesting one. I'd definitely try him out. Okay, so I'm not going to go over each champ here individually as such. I'm just going to pretty much read them off this list. Okay, so Fiddle doesn't have a blue buff early. He'll never make it to level 6. Can't duel people. Anyone with a CC, he can't duel. We'll just drive him straight out of the jungle. I really, really like Fiddle. I play him a lot. I climbed to high challenger with Fiddle because I warded up my jungle and made sure I didn't get counter jungled. In fact, I counter jungled with Fiddle. I'd go from my blue buff to their red and kill them there because they weren't expecting it. But in a general sense, I know Fiddle is actually a low tier jungler, and I just sort of knew how to play him right. And you can do that with any of these junglers. If you know how to play a low tier jungler well, it's, you know, you can climb high with it, but it's going to be a harder success rate in general. Rammus, similar to Fiddle, bad clear time, bad objective control. Ganks are okay, but you need to have quite a few levels in your E, which means you need to be kind of like level 7 to 9 for it to be really, really good ganking, I guess. Laning phase is kind of over by then. His late game scaling, sure, he becomes a huge tank and can kind of grab someone, but with Banshees and Mikhails being kind of big items, I guess. You can't really get onto the backline and taunt them as easy as you'd like. Gragas packs a whole lot of CC, kind of prone to getting shit on in the jungle before like levels 4 to 6, you know, hasn't got that much in his kit to fight you. Scales pretty well into the late game, his team fighting's really good. But yeah, kind of in the same group as like a Moo and stuff, but just a little bit worse in the jungle, I'd say. Better in top lane. Yeah, Kayle ganking is pretty bad. Scaling is okay, but this champion got wrecked by a nerf pretty hard. Early jungle pressure is pretty crap. Objective control is pretty crap. So yeah, you've got to farm really hard to get any success with Kayle, and that's just not suitable. Like for the majority of games, you'll just relieve all map pressure, and the other jungler's going to go run wild either on top of you or on top of all your laners. Which leads me to Warwick, which is pre-6, most useless champ in the game. Like, he just does nothing. He'll run up to you and, you know, say hi. He can't even throw a snowball at you like Nunu would, but he just, yeah. He's gonna walk up to you and like slap you once. You know, his level 6 gank is absolutely potent though. Like, you can't escape a level 6 gank from Warwick. There's so much damage that pairs with a Feral Flare. Warwick, just jumps on top of you with a Feral Flare, Blade of the Ruin King. There's 3/4 of your health gone. Q, there's 5/6 of your health gone, and then he'll chase you down. But saying that, pre-6 crap. His objective control's okay, and the fact that he can solo stuff a lot. His Q can kind of work as an execute. And yeah, Master Yi, C the same as Warwick, except level 6 ganks are worse, but scales well into late game, gets shut down late game. Shaco, good early game pressure, bad late game scaling, no hard CC, bad clear time, objective control is mediocre. I mean, you can use your clone and stuff, but yeah. Karthus, prone to early game jungler, getting counter jungled early, can duel reasonably well if you're good at hitting your Qs, but kinda too squishy to be able to duel for a long time. Mana pool was a big issue when you're dueling as well. Really good clear time, really good scaling. Objective control not that bad. You can take you can take dragons and barons really fast, but you can't sustain well with it. His Q also does a huge amount of damage to them for an execute if you want to use it that way. Shyvana, pretty much the same as Master Yi and Warwick. Scales really well into the late game, but lacks early game pressure. These guys, a lot of the Feral Flare junglers, obviously you see through here. And that's because Feral Flare junglers rely on farming, usually have pre-6 slumps, and that's just not going to fit into the meta where you need to be able to pressure your lanes and need to be able to duel and protect your jungle or counter gank effectively with your junglers in the current meta. Okay, that pretty much concludes it. I'm gonna briefly touch over tier 4. Tier 4, the tank junglers. Zac, Sejuani, Nautilus, Volibear, Mundo. I put Darius in there because I like playing Darius in the jungle, but Malphite and Cho'Gath. So these guys, all slow clear times. Most of them, their ganking is pretty poor. Like, I mean, you can argue Nautilus's ganking's good, but in a 2v2, he'll get crushed. His clear time's really slow, he'll get crapped on by any of the top tier junglers in a 1v1. So, yeah. You can't get that fed on them from farming. In a gank, if you get counter ganked, you'll lose. Most of them can't gank that effectively anyway, like until level 6 and stuff. The change to the Ancient Golem wasn't that effective on a lot of them. Like Zac and Mundo actually probably suffered from it, I'd say, because they worked better with the spell vampy sort of passive as well as the bonus damage from spells. That goes for a lot of them actually. The change to the Ancient Golem was kind of meh.